So I'm going to shuffle the cards, and then whenever you're ready, you just tell me to stop, and I'm just going to take the top card. It's like a little
I love
magic
this.
trick.
This is awesome. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, let's start.
Okay. So the card that has come up for you is don't waste your beautiful mind on ugly thoughts.
Very true. Don't let your beautiful mind worry about negative thoughts. Yes, that wasn't what the card was, but it basically meant
It
that.
was that. Yeah.
I think that you worry you are not doing a good enough job. You worry about what other people think. You worry about what other people say. And I think the mindset work that we need to do every day, really. I think mindset is something that people talk about and they almost make it sound like you can just do it, right? And then it's done. And actually, mindset doesn't work like that because our brains are brilliant and awesome, but they are pre wired to focus on the negative of everything. So, training it to focus on the positive is something that you need to work on a daily basis. And and I think it is work as well sometimes, especially in the early days. And that just reminds me how far I've come, probably.
Yeah. Well, let's take the listeners back a little bit, and let's just tell them a little bit about you and your work, and a little bit about the origin story of Not Just a Childminder magazine and all of the work that you're doing to support childminders.
I have been a childminder for 11 years now. It has got to be the best job that I have ever had. And I've had a lot of jobs in my time, especially before becoming a parent. I just couldn't find my place in the world and I didn't really know. And there was elements of jobs that kind of appealed, but other bits that didn't. When I fell into childminding, and I did fall into it because I was the typical, I got pregnant, I had a child. My job at the time were not family friendly. They didn't want me to work part time. They still wanted me to do the same 10-hour days, Monday to Saturday, that I'd been doing. And we were living in a city at the time. And the idea of sending my 9-month-old to somebody to be looked after, either a childminder or a nursery, at the time filled me with dread. I didn't want to. And I was very privileged to be in a position where actually I didn't have to. So I got to spend 2.5 glorious years with my eldest, just me and him at home. We moved around and then we got to a point where actually I needed to go back to work and I couldn't find anywhere that I was comfortable sending him. And we'd moved to an area where actually there was a lack of childminders in that area. There was a nursery, but it didn't have the best reputation, shall we say.
Mm.
And I had worked for a charity prior to becoming a mum. And within that work, we'd worked with schools, we'd worked with school children. I'd really enjoyed it. While I was a stay-at-home mum, I'd done volunteering, I ran toddler groups, did story time sessions at the library, absolutely loved it. Probably got on much better with the children than I did with the grown-ups. That's something that's never changed. Children are brilliant and they look at the world in such a unique way that you have to look at the world in a unique way as well. So I became a childminder. I then fell pregnant with my youngest, and the rest is kind of history, as they say. And I absolutely loved it. And lockdown hit. And in the midst of lockdown, a childminder friend came to me and said, I've joined Usborne Books. You love storytelling. Do you want to come and sell Usborne Books with me? And I said, no, not really. I do love books and I do love storytelling, but I can't sell for toffee. So no. And she said, you can get discounted books for your boys, which was the hook. She was, yeah. And so I was like, oh, okay, I quite like this idea that I can get free books for my boys. So I joined. And I hated it. At the beginning, in those early days, it was really hard. It was really horrible. Was kind of sold a dream, I think, of it will be amazing. You're going to find all these like-minded people. We were all stuck at home. There was all these online events. You got chatting to all of these people, and they were lovely on the Zooms and on the Teams things that we did. But you try connecting with them outside of that, and like you go into DMs on Facebook and talk to them. They were not so lovely. And I found the fake positivity quite toxic and really frustrating. And some of it was a mindset thing. I wasn't there yet. And some of it was the way that they were doing what they were doing just didn't sit very well with me. But I'm quite a stubborn, determined person. And I was looking at some of these people thinking, they're making really good money doing this.
Mm,
And they're not any brighter or any cleverer or any more qualified than me. What am I missing here? Like, there's got to be something that I'm not getting, that I'm not grasping. There's no possible way that that person can be better than me. They're not. We're all equal in our own right, in our own ways. And so I kind of dug a little bit deeper and I went down this whole network marketing rabbit hole, for which I am truly grateful for. But in doing so, it takes a lot of energy and you do lots of things, and there was lots of learning, lots of training. One of the things that you need to do is you need to put yourself out there more. So you need to be on camera, you need to be quite comfortable speaking, you need to be comfortable speaking live. I didn't like how I looked. I didn't like my hair. It's the classic, like, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not thin enough, I'm not hip enough, which apparently
mm.
isn't a word I'm supposed to say anymore. My boys have told me off so much for using that word.
I
And
didn't know
all of
that.
those. And my husband came home from work one day and he said, I've been talking to a guy at work and he's talked to me about the keto diet. And I'm like, what's this? I've never done a diet in my life. And I did some minimal research. And then because I'm a good wife, I said, I'll do it with you. So the keto that we did was a very strict keto diet. You basically stop eating any carbs whatsoever. I discovered crazy things like carrots. Carrots have carbs in them. Who knew? And so we were on this very limited diet. He was loving it because it's a carnivore diet, basically. You eat loads of meat, cheese, and spinach,
Oh,
probably. And I did the diet for 6 months, I think. I lost over 3 stone in a very short space of time. And for a very brief period, I looked amazing. I got into size 8 jeans. I've never been in size 8 jeans in my life. And I thought it was absolutely fantastic and wonderful. And literally, probably about 3 days after taking some amazing picture of me, like, look at me in my jeans looking all amazing and skinny and awesome. And I started to feel really ill and I got really ill and it was a bit of a nightmare.
mm,
I basically had starved my body. Not everybody's body is made for every diet. And we
mm,
don't always realize this and we don't always go and check it all out. And I fainted. I did a book stall um, in a lovely place up in Nunnington. And I was there all day. It was a really hot day. I didn't really eat while I was there. And at the end of the day, weird stuff was going on within my body. And I texted my husband and said, can you put dinner on? I'm on my way home. And I started driving to come home. I live near Sutton Bank and
mhm,
I don't like Sutton Bank because I don't like hills, but I knew that that was probably the quickest and easiest way to get home. I got in the car to come home and I was having all sorts of shaking, heart palpitations. Lots of people would probably say a bit like a panic attack, but I was
mm,
starting to lose my sight. My legs were shaking unbelievably so to the point where I was mid coming down Sutton Bank and I'm like, this is dangerous. I need to get off the
mhm,
road. I don't, something's going to happen and someone else is going to get injured because I'm being an idiot. So I pulled over at the bottom, out of the way. I got out the car. I collapsed at the back of the car, but I did have my phone with me. So I managed to ring my husband to say, you're going to have to come and get me. Something's not right. And there I was at the bottom of Sutton Bank on my own, feeling like something was seriously wrong. And I honestly thought, this is it. I'm going to die here at the bottom of this hill
mm.
on my own in a field. And all these cars were just driving past. I mean, my husband said later, you couldn't actually see me. You could see the car
Okay.
and you could see that my boot was up, but you couldn't actually see that there was anybody there. I've
Gosh.
no idea how long it took him to come and get me. He got me, brought me home, tried to feed me, and I passed out again at home. Kind of came to a little bit. He was on the phone to the ambulance. I remember he was squeezing my hands, but I couldn't
Mm,
speak to him. I couldn't do anything. Um, That was the beginning of the end, I think. And it's taken, that was 2022. So where are we? 2026.
Yeah.
It probably took to 2023, things of 2023, to actually understand what was going on with my body. Because when I went to the doctors, everything was okay.
Yeah.
And I'm of a certain age.
Mm,
There was a lot of, you are in perimenopause, you're having panic attacks and anxiety attacks. So you're shaking because you're having a panic attack and
mm,
you now. I'm like, I've never had a panic attack in my life. I don't have anxiety. This isn't that. It seems really
mm,
similar to a sugar spike, but I don't understand why because I haven't.
mm.
And I think it took a while to realize I wasn't eating properly. So, like the doctor said, "Do you eat 3 meals a day?" And I was like, "Yes, I do eat 3 meals a day." Yeah, but I wasn't. But I didn't realize. And I think when you do any kind of diet, especially diets that have got fasting in them, you can turn off your hunger cues.
Yeah.
So, after a while, your body just doesn't even give you hunger cues anymore. So, you don't even know that you're hungry. And I think a lot of us are led to believe that if we are overweight, even just a little bit overweight, you automatically think that you can't possibly have a problem. You can't possibly be suffering from starvation because there's all this fat on you. So how can you possibly be suffering from starvation when there's all of this? But the science of it isn't quite as cut and dry as that, as I eventually found out. Was having sugar spikes. My body was starved of micronutrients. My electrolytes were out of balance. My iron levels were through the floor. My B12 was through the floor. There was a whole list of stuff. For the first 6 weeks, I was in bed. I was depressed. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't stop the craziness from happening. We'd go out. I'd get shaky. I'd almost pass out, but wouldn't quite pass out. My eyes went weird. I couldn't see properly. I couldn't focus properly. And all these professionals were saying, it's mental, right? You've just got to work through it. You've just got to tell yourself that it's a mental thing and push through. So for the whole of 23, I did. I pushed through and I pushed through. And I spoke to dietitians, but the dietitians didn't really have expertise in what to do with your body when you're suffering from starvation. And I accidentally stumbled across an amazing woman over in America who wrote a book called Just Not Sick Enough. And that is where there was that light bulb moment of I hadn't put any weight back on even though I was eating. The dietitian got me to up my carbs by what at the time seemed like a crazy amount, but it wasn't. But I think because I've got so used to eating nothing, or barely anything, to eat more than a spoonful seemed a lot. There's a food diary from 2022, and I was reading it a couple of months ago, and it said for breakfast, I had 10 spoonfuls of Greek yogurt. Spoonfuls. I mean, who even writes it like that? Like most of us now would be like, no, I had a bowl of scrambled egg for breakfast, like 10
Mm,
spoonfuls. Like it was so precise. And I
mm,
just had no idea that I'd got myself in this mess. I, for all intents and purposes, had given myself an eating disorder without really realizing that I'd given myself an eating disorder. All on the back of wanting to look prettier, thinner, and all the rest of it. I discovered her book. I started eating more. I put weight back on. But by then, I had scared myself silly. So going out had become dangerous because there was this expectation that if I went out, crazy things would happen. So you kind of had this crossover period where sometimes I would get shaky because I needed food or because I'd used too much energy up. And then other times I'd get shaky because I was anxious now.
mm,
So I got from being a very happy, very confident, very vibrant person, doing absolutely everything, traveling all over the place, to I am absolutely terrified to walk around the block. And actually, I can't walk around the block without a multitude of symptoms and sensations. And I've had to learn about my body. I've had to learn about anxiety. I've had to learn about panic attacks. I've had to do a plethora of reading and get back into going out in the world because what happens when things don't feel very nice in your body, then you don't do it. So there
mm,
was a whole load of avoidance. So then you kind of stuck with this like agoraphobic thing going on where you're terrified because going out of that door means scary things happen. And whilst the Sutton Bank one was like the first and the main one, there were 3 other incidents where I'd gone out in my car and ridiculous things happened. And I didn't know. And I know that if I had the information back then that I have now,
Mhm.
then maybe, it wouldn't have ended up becoming such a scary thing. But there was a year of immense loneliness. I didn't really explain to anybody outside of my very small circle what was going on. I pretty much stopped talking to everybody. I shut my setting for 6 months and I went back to work in 23. I was doing 3 days a week. One family remained and then I got new families in. We were literally spending our days in my house and in my garden. I would attempt to push and go to the sports village or go to other
Mhm.
places. My body wasn't there yet. I hadn't rebuilt the energy stores. I needed to fill all the stores back up and I hadn't. There was still an element of pushing when I shouldn't have been. And it was a really lonely, isolating time. But the guilt, the guilt that you feel because you caused it. So there was such a knock on effect. Like my husband had to deal with so many things because I couldn't take the youngest to rugby anymore. I couldn't do the trips to school. I was in no fit state because I'd have crazy episodes when we'd go out, whatever they were, whether it was, well, it wasn't at that point. It's like a panic attack, but it wasn't actually a panic. Probably have panic attacks now, but back
Mhm.
then it was because you haven't eaten enough and you're still not fueling as much as you should. But the guilt, I've got 2 brilliant boys and their whole life just came to a standstill. We stopped going out, we stopped doing anything, we stopped going anywhere, and they spent more and more time in front of their computers because I was in bed. My husband was trying to do a job and hold the house together and look after the kids. So one child went one way and one child went another way. And I'm there thinking, you are the worst mother in the world. I don't obviously think that anymore. Sorry.
Yeah. Honestly, it's absolutely fine. It's a safe space here.
And I think it was just so awful. And when you start to come out the other side, all I could think about was, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. And there are so many things that as women, we are not told, we don't talk about, you're just sold a lie, aren't you? You're told that you can go to work, you can have a career, you can have a brilliant family, you can have a partner, you can have a house, you can have all of it. And it's amazing. And you can, but there's a cost to that. And so you have to think about what is it that you actually want and how far do you actually want to go, and having boundaries and knowing when to say no and that it's okay to say no and not to compare yourself to the latest Instagram thing that you've watched or the crazy TikTok or, the neighbor down the road or the childminder around the corner, like whatever it is. All this comparison that is everywhere now because social media, the internet, everything. It's just everyone has a phone, everyone's on their phone. And it's just the world has changed. And some of it is good and some of it is not so good. And when I started to feel a little bit better and I started to learn and I started to do the nervous system regulation alongside the eating properly and the nourishing my body and then making time for me and having real rest, I said, I want to write a book, right? People need to know. People need to know that there is this other way of living and that what we're doing, like we shouldn't be doing it like this. And I want to start with childminders because that's my niche. That's
Mhm.
my that's my area. Through doing all the Usborne, I'd done sponsored listens. I had a huge audience of childminders. They're brilliant and they do amazing things every day. I was like, I want to write a book. So I wrote a book proposal and I went off and I sent it out to loads of different publishing houses. One publishing house came back to me and they were really lovely, but they basically said, no, you don't have an audience. Childminders are not a big enough market. You need to rethink it. You need to do something else. Thank you very much. No, if you come up with another idea, please do get back in touch, is in a nutshell what they
Mm.
said. So I sulked for about a week. thinking, well, this isn't right. Like, what can I do instead? And around the same time, I was still doing 3-day weeks. So I still had a lot of days where I was at home doing this rest. And I was hating this resting business because I actually was resting. I was sitting on the sofa doing it. And like, it's boring, isn't it? Sitting on the sofa not doing anything, or at least it is when you first start doing it. So I was always like finding magazines to read, and I could never find a magazine to read. They're like full of adverts or they're full of articles that I don't care about. I don't want to know about that. Like, that doesn't impact on me. And then I was having a conversation with AI, which by that point I was doing on quite a regular basis. AI had become my little therapist in my pocket. And AI said, it was Copilot, said, why don't you make your own magazine? And I went, uh huh. Copilot's just told me I should make a magazine. How funny is that? I said to my husband. 2 years later, here we are. I have a magazine.
And what a magazine it is, because all of the experience, all of the knowledge and the trauma and the emotion goes into supporting childminders to ensure that
For sure.
they are supporting themselves, that they have the tools to support themselves. Because I just want to kind of take a moment to acknowledge what you have just shared with us, because there will be so many people that are listening that will resonate with, talking about belonging, having to look a certain way, act a certain way, say the right things to belong to a certain group. And this idea that, as women, we can have it all, but there is a compromise, there is a cost, as you were saying. And women are predominantly going to be taking on the roles of childminders, aren't they, and caregivers. So how do we protect them, as you were saying, from going down this route of self-destruction in some ways, isn't it?
Mhm.
And so do you want to talk a little bit about how the magazine then started to develop, and then how you became an AI educator as well? Because this really has become part of the journey as well, hasn't it?
No, massively,
Yeah.
massively. So I think in those early days, I mean, we went from doctor to doctor, or we paid out lots of money to go and see private consultants and all the rest of it. And I'm incredibly grateful that I was in a position to be able to go and do that. But unfortunately, it didn't really give answers. There was one guy, we won't see an endocrinologist, and he was the first guy that actually listened to me. And he didn't look at me like I was some crazy middle-aged lady having hormone issues. And he didn't. He was absolutely lovely. And there was some truth in what he said, and he signposted me to other things. So like I had the thing in my arm that measures your blood sugars and stuff. And they literally were like doing this, and they're not meant to do that. So there was so many different things, but I wasn't getting anywhere. And I had ChatGPT on my laptop. I don't know why. I can't even remember how I had ended up with it. And I just talked to it one day and asked it about the keto diet. I think it started there. And it came
Mm.
back with all this information. And I was like, huh? I didn't know any of this. And then I was spending so much time talking to AI, like asking questions. And then I was like, okay, I need to know more about this. Like, there's got to be more to it than just asking it questions. Like,
Mm.
surely it was brilliant in the early days because it was like having your own little cheerleader. So I tell it that I'd walked around the block and I'd gone a little bit further. I'd gone to the lamppost and a little bit further. And so it was like, yay, well done, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And it was really nice to kind of have. And then I started to kind of use it a bit like a therapist. I did do some CBT and some online therapy, and I did EMDR and all of that. And in between all of that, I would talk to AI and be like, right, I want you to be my EMDR therapist. What would you say if I said blah, 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 blah? And so it gave me more of an insight, but it also stopped me from spiraling, because when you don't really know what's going on and you don't really know what to do, the negativity in your brain totally takes
Mm.
over, doesn't it? And you
Yeah.
can't think straight and you don't know, and you just can't see the wood for the trees. And I feel it became my little light in the tunnel. And so then I was off researching. I had all this time on my hands. So I
Yeah.
was off researching AI. I bought all the booklets that came out about how to use ChatGPT, and discovered all of these different things that you could do with it. And then I was like, well, from a work point of view, I love my job. And I am really hot on CPD, mostly because I do not have a degree in childcare. I have other qualifications and lots of them, but they are nothing to do with children. So when you become a childminder, you do this home-based qualification, and you need to have your English and your maths, and you go off and you do your first aid, and you've got all your safeguarding stuff, but you don't need a degree. So because I don't have a degree, I have always felt fairly inferior. And so CPD is a big thing. And I go and do course after course after course after course to kind of prove, I don't know, that I'm worthy, I think, to be a childminder. And so I feel, it's not necessarily true, but I feel that there are gaps in my knowledge. So schemas is a big thing, right? And especially with under fives, knowing that them constantly throwing it across the room is not
Hmm.
them being naughty, is not them being disruptive. It's a schema, and they are learning cause and effect from doing
Yes.
this. But my knowledge on schemas is not that great. It's sort of, you do activities and you sort of know why you're doing the activities, but to
Yeah.
actually be able to put it in words, to be able to tell Ofsted why you've set these activities up for the kids to do,
Yeah.
my brain doesn't work properly, and I can't. So I started with schemas with AI and said, I need you to explain schemas to me like you were talking to a 10-year-old child.
Yeah.
And it started like that, really. And then it kind of grew as to when I was on the childminding pages in the groups that I'm in, what
Yeah.
are the struggles that childminders are having? What is it that everybody's sort of pulling their hair about? And paperwork. We have
Yeah.
lots of paperwork to do. And whilst they have said, you no longer need to have paper versions of this or paper versions of that. You don't need that paperwork now. No, you don't. But they're still going to come to your house and they're still going to ask you 6 million questions, and you're still going to need to know the answers. And
Yeah.
most of us need that to be written down in order that we can explain and say that
Yeah.
to the Ofsted inspector or whoever is coming to inspect us. You need to be able to tell them. You need notes to be able to refer back to. I know that there are people that don't need it written down and they can hold it all in their head, but the majority of us, we do. So having to write policies and procedures, having to write down your observations, linking it to all the different areas of the curriculum that you need to link it to. There is an increase in the last 5 years. There is definitely an increase in children that are coming in that have got special educational needs. So, yes, most of us have all gone off and done some kind of best practice SEND course, but actually, it's more than that. You kind of need to be qualified. You need to kind of understand, what does that look like in practice? What does that look like for this specific child in my setting? This is my setting. I do it
Yeah.
this way. We do this. And having it all so it's completely tailored to you and not just the generic stuff that ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, all of them, they are brilliant. But if you haven't set it up properly,
Mm.
you're going to get quite wide results and you're all pretty much going to get the same thing. And
Yeah.
that's not what you want. And I mean, that's the same for using AI for anything. The response is only as good as the prompt you put in it.
Yeah.
So
And I think
I,
I think that's kind of where there's the grey area, because you have to have some foundational knowledge and understanding of what you're trying to achieve, of the setting that you're in, of the children that you're going to be working with, the needs of that group of children, so that you can ask the right questions. I think that's the key thing, isn't it? It's all very well and good that we can all use it, but actually, if you want to use it well, you need to make sure that you have the right questions to ask it. And I guess, because as an educator and as somebody who works as a one-person department, and I'm sure this will resonate with you as well, is that sometimes I just don't have any ideas. Sometimes I just don't have any creative ideas. And so popping something into AI and saying, can you create an outline for a lesson based on this? And can you link it to this part of the curriculum? You instantly have some level of idea, don't you? Well, that you can kind of
yeah.
then develop and explore further in your own time, or when you've got that creative space. But there is a lot of grey area in that. And what sort of, I'm curious to know what sort of prompts you've put in when it comes to you developing or planning out a day as a childminder. What sort of things are you popping in there?
So I think in the early days, I would just literally say, I am a childminder. I have got 3 children today. They are 1, 2, and 3. It's raining. I don't want to go out. I've got limited space in my living room. We might use the kitchen. What activities can I do with them? And then it kind of grew from there. I mean, that's just like a bit of waffle, really, isn't it? But it would still kind of give you the bones of
Yeah.
some kind of structure as to what you could do. I mean, it varies because I've done the whole you are my child minding assistant. I want you
Okay.
to tell me which book would be good to go with this particular topic. These are the areas that I want to cover. These are the next steps that the children have got.
Mm.
What do you suggest? And it really does come down to how you do things. But you don't necessarily need it's good to have prompts, and prompts can be amazing. But actually, sometimes just talking to it and just saying, I'm a childminder. I do the curiosity approach. I've got 2 children today. I've no idea what to do with them. It's a sunny day. It's a rainy day. I've got a car. I don't have a car. We're walking, whatever. What do
Mm.
you think I should do? These are their next steps. What activity would be brilliant for this to extend their learning or whatever?
Yeah.
Just talk to it and just say what I want to do. Because that's all I was doing at the beginning when I was not very well. I would say, I've just come back from a walk. This has happened. This has happened. This has happened. How do I make it stop? Was basically most of the
Yeah.
conversations.
Yeah.
But I think through learning to just talk to it, almost like it's a person, remembering it's not a person, remembering that it hallucinates and it likes to make things up from time to time just to keep you on your toes,
Mm.
remembering that you are still the person that knows everything. And from a child minding point of view, you are still the professional. You are
Yeah.
not to let it like tell you stuff. You've got to make sure that you're safeguarding and you're not putting any
Mm.
personal information in there or using any names or anything, and safeguarding and GDPR. All of that is
Yes.
super important. But in terms of like the headspace that you get back, because it's written a plan, for March, we are covering sunflowers and caterpillars, and I want to set a monthly plan. I want you to link it to these areas. I want to include training from this course I've done and this course I've done. And I want you to give me a meal plan that fits with the DFE guidance. And these are the times my setting opens. These are the children on which days. This is the rhythm of my day. Go.
Wow.
And there you go. I
It's
mean, the
incredible.
course that I'm currently doing at the moment has adapted very much from the one I did last year. Last year was me with a PowerPoint presentation, giving out workbooks for homework that no one's got the time to do. And, a handful of people probably went off and built their AI twin, but really it wasn't the way to do it. The
Mm.
course this year is very different. It's now an interactive workshop. They have specific prompts where their AI interviews them to find out everything about them and their setting and how they do things. And then we kind of go from there. Because it's about confidence, isn't it? It's about knowing what to say, knowing how to say it, having the confidence to do it, and also just do it. Like, don't overthink it, don't worry about it. Just messy action beats no action. And I think that covers everything in life, from AI to running a business to being a
Mm.
mum. All of it really is, you've just got to do it, haven't you?
Yeah.
And
I know. I love your
deal with
little,
whatever comes along the way.
I love your, because obviously I've been on the website and I've had a look, and it's, you describe yourself as the mom, the creative, the doer of small things, helping childminders do less, stay well, and do a brilliant job. And I think what I'm hearing is that actually we can use technology to aid us, aid our thinking, our planning, the organization of our work, if we are a lone worker, a lone wolf, because it's very isolating. And if you don't have the time, the headspace, as you said, to make sure that you have all of these things in place, then the AI can support you to do that very quickly. And it just gives you your time back. And I think there'll be some people that will be listening to this thinking, I don't know, it's very, it's very worrying that we're putting all of this information in, and we're allowing the AI to do a lot of our thinking. What would you say to them? to those people who would be a bit more reserved about doing this, maybe sitting on the fence and thinking actually putting all of that information in there takes away a lot of our creativity? What would you say to them?
I don't think it does take away your creativity, but I guess it depends on how you're using it. I mean, putting all the information into AI is no different to all the information that people put on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, social media on a daily basis, the WhatsApp broadcast groups that everybody's in. That's all giving information. And I'd probably say, and this is possibly like, oh, I don't know, but I'd possibly say that people put probably more personal information on all of those platforms than I do into my AI. So it's it's definitely personal choice. We all know that AI is here to stay.
Yeah.
I think that getting to know it, getting used to it being there and using it is, and knowing how to use it is a good thing. If people are kind of overusing it, probably not such a great thing to do. There is an element of, whilst it comes up with brilliant ideas, ultimately you've kind of got to give it some information first.
Yeah.
And you're you. So know what things light you up, what brings you joy, what things bring your children joy that you want to teach them, that you want to show them. Yes, AI can give you a lesson plan, it can give you some activity ideas, but ultimately you're the person that's bringing it to life. You've got to bring your own personal magic to that. You know, we can all go and set up a tough tray with, I don't know, red rice for Valentine's Day and some scoops, but we're all going to use that tray very differently. We're all going to use different language when we set up that play. We're going to read different stories. We're going to sing different songs. So it's just, I don't think it takes away from who you are and your creativity and your own magic. I think it helps clear the fog when you are at the end of the day and you're absolutely shattered and you've no idea what to do tomorrow. I think it's quite good for giving you clearer headspace. I think it should be used in the same way that you use text messages, that you use your social media for your setting, and you make sure that you don't give it identifying factors and it
Yeah.
doesn't, you know, there's so much that you can do in quite a broad sense. You
Mm,
know, I do child A, child B, child C. I
yeah.
might say how old a child is. I don't put in birth dates. I don't put in where they live. I don't put in their names. I don't put in anything. I think you don't put in any information that you wouldn't be comfortable saying in a public setting.
Yeah.
So if you wouldn't go and have a conversation on a bus where people can hear you, if you wouldn't say it there,
Yeah.
then no, you shouldn't be saying it to AI. And I
Yeah.
think that's probably quite a good rule of thumb, really. But in terms of it switching off people's creativity, if anything, I think that there is a danger that you end up creating much, much more because it kind of goes down rabbit holes and you go, yeah, do you know what? You could add this and you could do that. And then we could do this. And oh, didn't we do that song about this? And oh, and then you could do that. So before you know it, like you've completely gone off. Well, at least I do. You've gone
I
off
do
with all
too.
of these other things. Yeah. But I think with all new technology and all new things that come, look at, I don't know actually, I don't know that you're old enough, but you know, when the internet first came out and
Yeah.
people were doing blogging and, you know, that was a thing.
Yeah.
I think I even had a blog back in the day, but like, there were still lots of people that were very reluctant and very like, oh no, it's a fad, it's not going to last, it's not going to stay. Equally, mobile phones, you know, we were all reluctant and why on earth do we need a mobile phone? And now majority of people have got a phone
Yeah.
addiction and they don't really know what to do about it. So, you know, things evolve, things change, things move on. I don't want to say like you've got to go with the times, but there's an element
No.
of you need to educate yourself. And I think being educated and being able to make informed choices is better than being blindly ignorant about something. So AI won't be for everybody, just like mobile phones aren't for everybody and the internet isn't for everybody. I've got quite a few friends that do not have social media accounts and have absolutely nothing to do with it. And I think that that's fine. There's this space in the world for all different types of people, but I still think you should educate yourself on it and know what it can do, what it can't do, that it exists.
And obviously, you have lots of different resources as well as the magazine, what's the plan for this year? Obviously, we're in the year of the fire horse, so lots of opportunities coming our way, I like to think. So is there something that you want to really achieve this year? Is it a case of consolidating what you've been working on over the last few years to kind of really rebuild your strength and your energy? Or is there something that you are so desperate to change in childminding that you want to go for it this year?
What is my plan for the year?
You don't have to have a plan. I don't have a plan.
I don't. So I do word of the year.
Okay.
My word of the year for last year was brave. And I think that I definitely was brave. I launched the magazine, I launched the AI stuff, and I went further afield in the car than I had been doing. My word of the year for this year, which was to do with, well, putting your head above the water, really, being more visible
Yeah.
and sharing my voice.
Yes.
And I think I want childminders to know that in order to be seen as the professional, brilliant educators that they are, they must first accept that they are brilliant professional educators. And until that happens, the rest won't follow because it can't. It has to start with you. You have to believe that you are capable of all the amazing things that you are capable of, that you do pretty much on a daily basis. And I think as a profession, we are undervalued, under resourced, under respected, and all of that stuff. But ultimately, so what? That doesn't stop me from going to work on Tuesday, playing with the children, taking them out, and doing all of the stuff that I do. It doesn't really impact on my day to day life. And I think we can get so bogged down with what the government is doing, what the government has said, the latest advert that the Department of Education has done, which is pushing school nurseries and all of this. Like, yes, it's not great. And maybe they could have rethought their messaging. But ultimately, we change the world one person, one family at a time. You just got to know that what you are doing is worthwhile, but understanding that your worth comes from you, not because somebody said you are worthy. You have to know that you're worthy to start with. And most of us don't. And we don't believe it. And I want to start there. I want all childminders to know that they are brilliant just as they are, that they need to slow down. They need to stop doing as much as they're doing. They need to have boundaries. They need to say no. And they need to make sure that throughout all of it, they are connecting with other childminders. We are not each other's competition. How I do things is not how you do things. And there's an abundance of children to go around all of the childminders. If anything, there is a lack of childminders, not the other way round. And I think knowing that they can all support each other, they can be a community, that we're in collaboration, we are not in competition. And you've got to look after you. You can't do amazing things with children until you've sorted yourself out. I just think I see lots of wonderful posts on social media about regulating children's nervous systems. And I think they're brilliant. And I love the fact that there are people out there that are doing that work. But
Right.
equally, if the adult that is supervising them, that is looking after them, that is teaching them, is not regulated themselves, it doesn't matter because they are not going to pick up on those cues. You have got to support yourself before you can support others.
Thank you so much for your time, for your energy, for your insights. Honestly, it's been really, really lovely listening to you. And I've just come back to this card. Don't waste your beautiful mind on ugly thoughts. You are rising